mean, I'm a fan of horror, and I sort of loved the mix of different things. You know, I've got a question that I want to put in there, like all the different elements you drew together. I think were really clever.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
You're
It was
welcome.
we had never done anything like that. We're actresses,
Yeah.
and I'm a little bit crazy that way. I'm sort of reckless. I get this big idea, big plan, dreams in my head. Let's do it. No thinking involved, just pure, impulse.
So is that how it started? You just wanted to write a film, and so talk me through
Originally,
the initial starts.
originally it was conceived of as a short, and there was so many things that we wanted to incorporate that it became really evident that it had to be a feature.
It took a life of its own. And
Yeah.
when I pitched it, my boyfriend is the editor of the film, and he also play my love interest in the Uncanny, Ted.
Ah,
So that was easy casting.
there we go. The chemistry was already there.
Like pure nepotism. And I remember going out to lunch with him. I said, Mike has this idea for short. He said, yeah, what is it? And I started telling him about it. He said, this is not a short, it's a feature. And I said, are you out of your mind? I've never even written a short. I'm an actress. He said, do it, just do it. So Claire's a wonderful writer, and she's extremely artistic and creative. So I said, hey, let's do that together.
So how did it work with you two writing together? Like,
It worked so well. It's probably the most peaceful and coexistence we ever had together, honestly. But we would we kind of, just sort of pick scenes that we felt like we wanted to write this scene for whatever reason, or maybe it was just, oh yeah, I'll write that one or whatever. And we would, one of us would take like a first go at it, and then we would pass it back and forth between each other.
mm-hmm.
So in that way, we kind of we were like editing each other's work and then just putting it all together. The most difficult part was definitely putting all of the scenes together.
Yeah.
It was really like kind of a jigsaw puzzle, which came back to us definitely in the editing room too.
Yeah, the funny thing is that, I don't know if you have a daughter, but mother and daughter relationships are very complex. And before a while back, Clara moved back with us, and it's like, I'm looking for my lipstick. Where's my Chanel Rouge lipstick? Why did you put it back where you took it from? It's like that kind of thing. But when we work as a team, as creators, we had no
it
issues.
Was really effortless.
Really
we had a very we really saw eye to eye in terms of what we wanted it to look like and be about, and what the vision was. And there was really it was just effortless, really.
Yeah, we had no creative disagreement, surprisingly. I know people thought, are you sure you want to do that together? But no, it really, surprisingly, it went really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you just need to channel everything through work. It'll make everything better.
Yes. Most difficult part, actually, and when the mother-daughter dynamic sort of reared its head for me, was that, it's so hard to watch a parent really in distress. I'm sure it's the same thing watching your child in distress, but the guilt, every single time she would have one of these big dramatic scenes, and I just wanted to run out of the room, really, because it was so, I just wanted to fix everything, but I was the one causing everything, and here I am directing her. And so it was really this strange internal juxtaposition to have like these really competing desires and goals.
And Clara seen me, and for me, it's acting, it's pretend, right? But she had seen me on films since I was a little girl, getting blown apart, turning into a zombie.
That was dramatic every time.
Showing a blowtorch in my face, I catch on fire, and I was looking at them. I'm saying, Clara, look, is that cool? Look, Clara. And then I really traumatized her for
It's
life.
terrible.
But
I mean, it's
she
different. It's all the emotional turmoil, isn't it?
Yes,
That's
yeah.
it's a lot harder to approach.
But she had her moment. Can I show the
Oh,
story?
what the head?
Funny got me back. There was a I have a
back.
total phobia of throwing
Felt
up.
so
Okay,
guilty.
I do not drink at all because I hate throwing up so much. I don't drink. And there's a scene in Uncanny where I tried to come and the first time my character tried to come and take
Tries to
pills,
overdose.
and then I threw up in the sink. So I'm like doing, finger in the throat, half heartedly, because oh my God, I don't want to do it. It's horrifying. And Clara said,
Clara, who in a past life was bulimic, excuse me, didn't have a problem with that and knew exactly what the vomit needed to look like. So I made this apparently disgusting concoction.
In the kitchen, ran in the kitchen, because we shut in our house, by the way.
Okay.
And so I ran and I ran.
I don't know what you did. I don't want to know. But she comes back and the whole crew's waiting. And I look at it, I smell it, I said, no. And she turned into this creature, she said, drink it.
That's the director speaking.
Huh?
That's the director and you speaking.
Yes. Yeah, it had to be convincing, I this was a pivotal scene and it had to be convincing. And
everybody was like, oh, the crew was dead silent. So I drank it, and of course it worked.
She just put some in her mouth.
That was enough.
That was enough. Yeah.
And then I went into full panic mode. And the assistant director is waiting next to the sink with some water for me, bottled water. I drank it, and that triggered the gag again. But I was so panicky that instead of just vomiting in the little sink, I ran across the room, the house, like a chicken without a head, ran to the kitchen to throw in the sink and hit my head full blast on the faucet. And I don't know what happened. Blank. Total, no recollection. I had a concussion, passed out, I guess. Somebody catch me. Next thing I know, I'm on the porch outside. Somebody put a rag on my head, and I hear my boyfriend saying, oh, fuck. And there's blood all over my face.
These are the joys, that you get filming. You get all these lovely little stories.
So Clara feels horrible.
Oh my God.
I have to go lay down, holding production, because I cannot control the bleeding. And I had this big scene where I'm crawling that pink tunnel after the little girl.
Yeah.
I'm practically I'm in tears because I feel so guilty, and
I am pissed off. And she goes into the room, she's sobbing, and I said, "You're luckier, my daughter. Fired you otherwise." Of course, I got over it. 15 minutes later, everything was cool. But we laugh about it now. We do. That was a big drama during the shoot.
And in the end, I actually ended up doing the sort of the insert for that because it still didn't work. But I really wanted it, and I'm very happy with it. So I definitely should have gone to that route the first time instead of putting my mother through such.
This is what you learn.
It is.
I was really safety conscious and paranoid somebody would get hurt on the shoot. We had 4 children in the set running around. We had a house full of dogs. Nope. I'm the only one that got hurt. That was me. So that's good.
Yeah. Oh, and we were both so sick on the shoot as well. Yeah, she was very sick.
Yeah, I had bronchitis throughout the shoot. Oh my God.
Chaos. How long did it take you in total?
Well, it was the initial shoot was 14 days.
15 days.
15 days, yeah. And then we had pickups.
We had
2.5 days.
We had to stop a little bit early because I had bronchitis. I was coughing nonstop. And actually, this picture of me on the set in 2018 wearing the mask. Isn't that crazy? When you think about it, woo, And so we went back in February in 2019 for 2 days for the weekend and finished shooting. The scene.
Yeah.
So to get back sort of, I mean, I'm sure I could talk about these stories all day, but to get back to the writing. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you is there are lots of different sort of horror themes and tropes that come in.
There
Yes,
are, yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, where did these all originate from? How did you want to put them all together?
Well, could you be just like, is there any specific one that you're thinking of?
So you've got like some sort of voodoo in there. You've got that kind of relationship. You've got, I mean, I think we call it here in England like Victorian sort of era horror with the dolls.
Yes.
And with
Yes.
You've got good old fashioned ghosts rattling around. You know, there are so many different elements that often you'd find in sort of singular horror films.
Right.
What made you want to put them all together?
I
Well, do
When
you
we
start the
initially-
impetus? The impetus of the film was that little doll that you see. I found that little doll in a dusty thrift store by Palm Spring, I think around the year 2000. And it was really a junk store, not even an antique store, just junk. And I have like laser eyes for antiques, and I'm obsessed with that stuff. And I see this little box, little doll, and I knew it was very special, but I had no idea what it was. And years later, I finally get a computer and I do a search online. I find the exact, almost the same thing. And I found out that were grave dolls, mourning dolls.
Yeah.
And that little dolls was a replica of a child had died with a real hair.
Yeah.
On the doll. And I thought, oh, someday I will do something with that. And that was the start, the impetus.
That was years and years and years ago.
Yeah, because I got it in 2000 and we wrote the script in 2016.
Yeah.
And then I enrolled, Clara jumped in, and then go ahead, Clara, what
I think I was just initially, from the impetus of the sort of this ghost girl, ghost child, I started researching quite a bit on ghosts and what the sort of beliefs around ghosts, and whether they're, they possibly be like a recording in a space, and then there's of course the thing that they're searching for, or that they have some duty. I was just drawn to this sort of all of those ideas, as well as alternate dimensions and different times being able to exist,
a parallel universe,
like a parallel universe. And so that was just all kind of, I don't know, I just, for me, the most interesting parts of horror films or any kind of mystery thriller is when they kind of delve into that kind of stuff. I don't know, I just eat it up. And so I wanted to incorporate that as much as possible. And then Daphne, who plays Deja, we've been friends for quite a while. She is Haitian, or her heritage is Haitian.
Parents are from Haiti.
And I just wanted, I wanted to, find tropes that I could try to invert and play with as much as possible. That was, I don't know how else to explain it, except that it was just something that I wanted to do. It was just something that excited me, was the idea of finding things that essentially are like a language almost, in terms of how audience members interpret things, how society interprets a certain genre, and then finding new ways of using that language to talk about things, which was the whole idea with the film, is that we're using the genre of horror to, well, traditionally horror had so much psychological, a strong psychological aspect to it. So it was really kind of revisiting it. I can't really completely take credit for it, but.
And I like to mention that most of everything in the film is the characters are real. Those are all written of people we know. So it's kind of a lazy way of writing, maybe, because we've never written scripts before, but we would have those people we knew. And when we wrote the dialogue, we could hear them talk in our head. For example, the Deja character and her husband used to live next door to us in the previous town. And the wife very, very much was convinced that her house was haunted.
Okay.
And she kept and she was pregnant, and she kept telling her husband, and the husband would come and talk to me. She said, my wife had me drive from this place to this place last night because she said there's ghosts in the house and we need to move out. So see this. So I think sometimes the best stories are just life. You just start taking in and stealing moments and things from people, and and use it in your writing. So just about everything.
Daniel was based off of a kind of a combination of two different neighbors that we had.
Neighbors of ours was fairly autistic, and his brother was taking care of him, and he would come over our house all the time and walk in and show us things he was doing. So the brother became a sister instead. And as far as the ghostly thing, I experienced something very strange, which also fed in the storyline, which is I'm as far as my faith, I'm agnostic. I'm open to anything. And I lost my parents within a year of each other in 2013 and 14. And I started experiencing around 3-4 o'clock in the morning when I came home. They died in Puerto Rico and Canada and Quebec, but when I came home in LA, I would be waking up around 4 or 5 in the morning. There was a sense it was a female presence in the room, enticing me to commit suicide. This is real. And it was not, and I'm terrified of death. Okay. So this is not even on my game plan, and it was very soothing, very calming sort of a presence. It was not scary at all, like a siren song, and we're like, what? And I would snap out of it, and it would linger in my mind for the rest of the morning. And it was really, really unsettling. And I only experienced it in that bedroom. When I would travel, went back home in Quebec, and then we moved to this house where we shot the film. Now, let me tell you about this house. This house used to be owned by a prominent local family that run a funeral homes. And the local rumor in the neighborhood that in the 1930s, when they bought a house, they used this house as a funeral house and embalming in the basement.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And when we bought a house and we met the owner, the person said, "Oh, we just want to let you know this house is haunted." I said, "I'm like, oh, this is great," They said, "Yeah, I have a daughter. She's 20-something years old. She won't come and visit anymore because when she sleeps here in that bedroom, she feels somebody feeling her legs." I'm like, and that experience I had with that presence started again in this house also, to the point that it became so overpowering that during COVID, I started sleeping in the living room on the couch.
And then when she started doing that, Mike,
my boyfriend,
started having the experience as well.
In the middle of the night, he's shaking me on the couch. He said, "Come sleep with me." I said, "Why?" Like, that's the weird thing you talk about. There's something funny going on. Isn't that crazy?
That's weird. That's weird. So that all draws in beautifully with the horror.
Right. So we use all those things, Clara and I, of life and people we know and experience, and we put in this big pot and cook it.
Yeah.
And there's also this I don't know if it's there's two sort of ghosts that we regularly kind of encounter. The spaghetti ghost. There's every maybe twice a year, this wafting of marinara sauce. It fills the entire house, and then the old lady perfume too.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, and the old lady perfume, there is a trail. There will be a trail of old lady perfume around the parameters of a house and interiors.
And we don't own any perfume. We don't wear perfume at all. So isn't that crazy? So exciting.
You're shocked. Your speech was like, I didn't think I was going to go down this route.
I was like, I didn't realize we'd talk about ghosts, but why not? So
It's shocking actually how many what a high percentage of people do believe in ghosts.
Hmm.
It's I think it's about 50%.
Yeah, we did a lot of research for that film. Oh my God, we researched so much stuff, and yeah.
Well, it's brilliant, and I mean, it's a subject that interests people. It's a subject that people want to watch and want to find out more about. So it's definitely one to delve into.
And I don't know if it was evident to you, because we tried to be subtle about it, because we like the idea of people leaving the theater and talking about, discussing the little things we plan in there. But the characters, the little girl and her mother died during the pandemic, during the Spanish influenza in 1918. We don't say that's where they died from. We just put the year 1918. You see the mother that's withering away, and then later on the little girl. So we didn't say it, but
there's a lot of things that are implied in film and are not blatantly stated at all. But what were you?
Well, but so it was kind of weird because we shot the film in 2018, and then the pandemic story was inspired because my grandfather almost died during the pandemic of the Spanish flu, and I heard stories about that. So a little piece of my family history too, I put it in there, and it ended up being sort of a foreshadowing what we're going through right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. It was crazy when it first started happening.
Yeah.
And here we were locked in in post,
Yeah. I mean, life mimics itself. It just goes around in circles, doesn't it?
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You just realize that. So obviously you've got a lot of horror. There's a lot of dark things, as we've spoken about. But the color in the film it's very light. It's very sort of pastel, soft hues.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to go with that sort of tone?
I wanted to I just, as much as I love the sort of the grays and blues and greens that you see in so much of horror, I wanted to explore a different route. I felt like the film itself wanted something that was going to be different. It wasn't quite exactly like that, and also something that was going to be really. I knew it was going to be a challenge, essentially, to make something that because we naturally already have these associations around those colors. Those colors being things that are spooky, things are going to be dark, things are going to be probably there's going to be some mental illness, or there could be some depression, but I wanted the film to also reflect sort of the more discreet ways that someone who is battling mental health issues will try to heal themselves, or will try to find some comfort, and one of the things that I know when I've dealt with when I'm dealing with any kind of mental health issue, I'll often gravitate towards the cutest, sweetest, most like little twee things that I could possibly get my hands on, because I'm so hungry for dopamine and serotonin, and anything that could possibly give me any comfort. And it's depression is not an easy thing that's to portray in a film, but in terms of a character arc, because when you're depressed, you're not doing anything, essentially. So I had to find other ways to portray the inner turmoil that was going on in terms of the fight for some sort of closure, some sort of sanity, so that's actually where that came around, as well as wanting it to be really representative of this sort of girlishness and childhood and femininity. And I was really drawn to a lot of some of the one of my absolute favorite horror films is definitely Rosemary's Baby, and I love that juxtaposition that it creates, this really horrific storyline within this almost preciously beautiful world that might be a facade, you know.
Hmm.
And
Well,
also,
that's beautiful. It comes across really well.
thank you. And from my side of things, because I work in mental health for 23 years, working with severely abused and neglected children in treatment facilities. So the character of Zouzou is basically, I never lost a patient, thank God, from suicide, but it happened to some of my coworkers.
Yeah.
And we would have kids who were just, I mean, so you work with them and they seem so full of joys, and they're painting and colors and rainbows, and next thing you know, they go to their room, they're cutting themselves, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's amazing how people can camouflage pain. And we would assume that people are severely depressed, they wear on their face, but
that they're all gothic.
But it's not, it's not. I mean, look at Anthony Bourdain when he commits suicide, or Kate Spade. Kate Spade's, I mean, her purse, her clothes, everything is so quirky and adorable. And people would say in online comments, but she looks so happy, all those colors. And Anthony Bourdain was always partying and this and that. I said, yes, this is it. This is what we're trying to show.
Yeah.
Is you know, pain is not just black and gray.
Yeah.
There's a whole rainbow of colors.
Yeah, and often those colors are used to camouflage, to both camouflage and self-soothe, you know.
No, that's really important. And then what I felt worked really well is when you had, you know, the flashbacks and sort of the violent, dark images that sort of punctuated throughout. They were then counterbalanced by those light tones and everything. Were they worked in during your edit? You know, getting those sort of pits in?
There was a mix of things that during the writing, we always sort of had the idea of really cutting between scenes and periods and flashbacks. It was really important to me that the flashbacks, that they were kind of jolting, because that's what trauma feels like, you know. So that was an important part, and so a lot of that was already in the script, but once you get into the editing room, everything sort of changes. And so, you know, some things, you know, work perfectly as they were on paper, and others you just have to kind of tweak and play with until you find what works with what you have now.
Yeah. For example, I think a scene that was totally written differently and turning around totally because of different casting is the scene where Lily's brother comes over and to give me the necklace that she made for us.
Yeah.
Originally, it was written for the father instead. And we were supposed to have a scene where the audience is fearsome, and so is Zouzou, that is here to kill her, to get back to her for failing as a therapist. The actor supposed to play the father could no longer do it, and our director of photography, Bianca Buddy, had suggested this terrific young actor named James Paxton, and she had worked with him. She said, Maria, I think it'll be really, really great for it. And so we rewrote the scene, and James it just totally changed. The scene changed, and we had no rehearsal. We met 10 minutes before we were going to do the scene, and we hit it up right away. We totally connected. He was grieving the death of his father. I was grieving the death of my parents. And I said, James, do you have siblings? He said, yes. Is there anything your sibling did that really got you upset? He said, yeah. I said, don't tell me about that. Save it for the screen. So the last part, because I thought, let's add a new dimension where they connect over laughter at the end. So first is very emotional, and at the end he tells me the story about his sister that cut up his baseball card collection, which was a real story. It was totally improvised, and it added a totally new dimension to, and that's the beauty of filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's magic because you never know Right, you never know. You really have three movies: the one you write, the one you shoot, and the one you edit. It's phenomenal. To me, it's like a head trip.
It is every single
there's
time.
nothing that comes close to it. It's so much, oh my God, so much joy experiencing that.
No,
And
you're
we
right.
lucked out with James Paxton working out too.
Amazing.
It was within a couple days, I think, that he got cast, and it just so happened that, I mean, you put this. Unfortunately, we didn't write scenes for the two of them together, but if you look at photos of them, they look. I mean,
like
they really
siblings,
like real siblings.
We had a terrific cast. We could not afford to rehearse. It was a union film, SAG, and you have to be. And this is like an ultra low budget movie, so we had to have really solid actors. And everything was like 2 takes. That's it.
Yeah.
And actually, a high percentage of our cast never acted before, and we wanted it on purpose to add another element. Yeah. So, for example, Uncle Duncan that does the little video.
Yeah, he's our neighbor.
Creepy video with the doll. He lives across the street from us, and he came to our Christmas party a year before. He walked in, and we're like,
"Oh my God, this guy!
He is Uncle Duncan! Oh my God!" And we asked him to audition for us, and we didn't know him. We never met him before. He was a prop master, and his dream all his life was to be an actor. So he was beside himself, and he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah,
that was amazing. Yeah,
it was perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so I've got time for one more question.
All right.
As this is film festival, have you seen it yet with an audience?
Yes.
We had a screening for family friends.
What is that like? That's always sort of one of my biggest questions for filmmakers, because it must be a whole world of difference sat there watching it with people.
It's exhilarating,
frightening
and terrifying all at once. And every single time you watch a film that you're working on, I think you find new things about it. You'll always find new things you want to change, and then you also find things that that's actually. But when you're watching with an audience, one of the things you find is, oh, I didn't think that people were gonna laugh at that. We were
very scared because we put humor in the film, which is a little tricky when you deal with something like depression and suicide.
And you start. It doesn't matter really what it is. If you're in the editing room, you're gonna stop having the same emotional reaction towards it, but you really feel it with humor. And when humor is flat, it's probably the worst. And so if you've been sitting with these jokes for so long, you really start to feel like they're not that funny anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
it was great because he said that they laugh at all the jokes, and then it becomes more as the film gets darker, it gets really quiet. And then after we had Q&As, and it was great. We had quite a few people. We had asked our crew and cast to bring friends because we want people who knew nothing about the film to send. And we were very, very happy the way it turned out. Yeah,
it's always exciting to be able to. I mean, if I could, I would have been looking around, but I didn't. I was sitting in the back and trying to be as unobtrusive as possible, but being able to hear the audience's reactions. I'm sure all filmmakers feel that way, but especially since we're both actors and we have experience in the theater, you really learn to feed off of an audience, really. And they give you so much life, and you have a really dynamic relationship with them, essentially. And so even though to some extent the film is, it's not alive and it can't change at this point anymore, there's still that sense that things sort of come alive and are reinvigorated when it's in front of these people who have never seen the film before.